Community relations between the cops and residents of New York City took center stage at City Hall today. And this afternoon, Reverend Al Sharpton sat down alongside Mayor Bill de Blasio and the Police Commissioner Bill Blatton to try and figure out ways to improve relations. Of course, we know the backdrop to this conversation. And as always, Reverend Sharpton did not hold back. In fact, he went right for the jugular.
Given the data that we are seeing in terms of these broken window kind of operations, is disproportionate in the Black and Latino community. If Dante wasn't your son, he'd be a candidate for a chokehold. And we've got to deal with that reality. We're not talking about training. Training is important, but you don't need training if a man's saying 11 times, "I can't breathe."
You heard him right. Reverend Sharpton directly used the mayor's own son and the word chokehold in the same sentence. The meeting prompted, of course, by this video that we've all seen by this point. 43-year-old Eric Garner, who, as you know, died after the NYPD tried to take him into custody for allegedly selling loose cigarettes on Staten Island. Officer Daniel Pantaleo, who you see on top, was caught on camera putting Garner in what appears to be a chokehold. Well, today, the mayor said while he has done quite a bit to improve police community relations over the course of his 7 months in office, he acknowledges there's still a whole lot more that needs to be done.
I take the responsibility of reform and change very, very seriously, but I also know that when we're trying to resolve issues that were years and decades in the making, the work of reform takes real intensity, real effort, and some real patience, and not the kind of patience that suggests that we wait and wait and wait, the kind of patience that says we have to get it right.
We must understand that public safety is just not the responsibility of the police. It is a joint responsibility with the community. And the way we get the community involved is to build respect rather than distrust. And that's what we are certainly going to be committed to going forward.
All right, I want to bring in our panel right now. Norm Bramson, the Democratic mayor of New Rochelle, 2013 Democratic nominee, in fact, for the Westchester County executive race. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, Republican strategist. Bill O'Reilly, served as Rob Astorino's spokesman in his successful runs for Westchester County exec. And Andrew, who you met before. All right, first of all, Mr. Mayor, we'll get to the optics in a second here. Was this smart politics on the part of the mayor to put himself, in effect, shoulder to shoulder with not just Al Sharpton and the police commissioner, but obviously elevating the stature of him in the process?
Well, I think anytime you can have a conversation about issues that obviously are of tremendous concern to big portions of New York City and should concern all of us who are interested in public safety, I think that kind of conversation is all to the good. And I know that this debate often goes to a place where it's assumed to be a trade-off between effective policing on the one hand and good community relations on the other hand. I completely reject that notion, and I think most police professionals reject that notion. If you have a good relationship with the community, it helps your police force be more effective. And if that's the spirit of the conversation, then I think it can only lead to a better place.
Can you do broken windows, quality of lifestyle policing here, and still have good relations in the community?
Yes, but the devil's in the detail. And you do have to make sure that officers are well trained, that there's a degree of sensitivity, and that day to day there's a real partnership between the police leadership and the police officers and people in the community who understand the impacts day to day of both quality of life problems and criminal activity and of potential overreach on the part of the police department.
Dominic, maybe I'm bringing baggage to this because I covered Al Sharpton during the Tawana Brawley case, and then subsequently in the defamation case that Stephen Pagonis brought against him. So that's the Al Sharpton that I was introduced to throughout the years. You have any problem, the optics of what we saw, and do you think that it was screened already that he was going to bring up his own son's name sitting next to him with a chokehold?
Well, whether we like it or not, Al Sharpton is a kingmaker, not just in New York City. He is a national kingmaker that has the president's ear. So those that may not like him, too bad. And he represents communities of color. Who's the first one that gets the phone call when people are in trouble of color as it relates to the police department? It's not us, it's not me, it's not Mayor de Blasio, it's Al Sharpton. And let's face it, without Sharpton, de Blasio wouldn't be sitting there right now. Sharpton made him the mayor of New York City, period.
Well, you can argue. He sold out Bill Thompson. I don't know at the end of the day.
But at the end of the day, whoever Sharpton was going to go with in a contested Democratic primary was going to be the mayor.
You're now the top either communications director or the closest aide to Bill de Blasio. Do you say, I'm going to put you right next to Reverend Allen, he's going to be talking about your kid in a chokehold.
But it doesn't matter what the top communicator says.
Was it good politics for him?
It's great politics because the family, the Eric Garner family, let's face it, the white community may not like it. Why are you putting Sharpton on equal level with the mayor? Plain and simple. Without Sharpton, de Blasio wouldn't be there. So de Blasio, whether you like it or not, he's stuck with him. And Sharpton is not playing because on August 23rd of this month, and of just a few days, he's basically going to shut down the city when he holds a march. So he's coming to City Hall with a carrot and a stick. He's going to go over the Verrazano Bridge. That means traffic is going to come to a stop. So whether you like it or not, there's a reason why every politician kisses Sharpton's butt.
And he doubled down. Because what he also said was what he'd like to see as not just the words, but the actions, he wants to see that same officer that was involved there in a perp walk. Mm-hmm. My only point of all this, has the mayor now empowered Al Sharpton? I agree with you, had power before today, so I'm not saying it came out of thin air. But has he empowered Al Sharpton to the point where he's going to decide what is or is not suitable justice here in this case?
I mean,
he talked out loud on camera that he wants a perp walk for the officer.
Keep in mind that Sharpton is representing the family, so there is a vested interest there. You know, my first reaction was, well, when I saw everything, well, now de Blasio owns it, but he kind of owned it already anyway, since it was happening on his watch. And that, I thought it was a shrewd move, actually, to put himself in between the police commissioner and Sharpton. I think it does elevate Sharpton to a certain degree, but that also means that there are parameters that can be met that will satisfy Sharpton and the people who are following him.
Well, one of the parameters was the perp walk here. At the end of the day, yes, he's got a problem, but he's also got to deal with the police department too. And if the police department thinks that Reverend Sharpton's calling the shots here in terms of what is or is not suitable, now, I'm not a big boy here, and I know that they probably talk that they will maybe pursue an indictment here. You would think that conversation happened behind the scenes before the press conference was said, or maybe not, I don't know, Bill. You have any problem with what you saw today? Or would you have counseled de Blasio to do the same thing?
Well, first of all, I don't know anyone who should voluntarily agree to have Al Sharpton sit on a set with him and a microphone and a television camera. Bill de Blasio did it today. Largely, he got away with it. I think politically, optically, it looked okay. I think Sharpton could have gone stronger. You never know what he's going to say. But the message, that, you know, the New York City police officers of all colors remember the Sharpton that I think you talked about with Tawana Brawley. They remember that Al Sharpton. And for the mayor to put him on that stage suggests that the police officer is getting sold out. I think that's the way they're going to feel, right or wrong. That's the way they're going to feel about it.
Do you really think that it's Sharpton that's the divisive? I mean, if there's another black leader in New York City who had the same prominence that Al Sharpton did, wouldn't he be A, in the same situation, B, calling for the same thing that Al Sharpton is calling for?
I think Al Sharpton elicits a much more visceral reaction. If you had Calvin Butts out there, or Reverend Johnny Youngblood out there, it would be a different thing. I think Sharpton elicits a very strong reaction. I agree with Dominic. He's built himself into a major national figure. I think the Democratic Party has helped that to some extent. That's just the way it is. I mean, he's filled that void. He took the
no
black
debate,
leadership.
Dominic. I'm just saying, in the end, he basically, to at least the naked eye, if you were watching this at home and you saw this, de Blasio was taking in part his cues from Al Sharpton. And for me, be careful.
Okay, but if you're Mayor de Blasio, what are you to do? Are you going to have your city explode?
No.
That's the level it's at. The anger in communities of color, I'm going to be honest with you, Richard. Black people are tired of being choked to death by police officers. It happened to a pregnant woman in her home and on the front yard of her home because she was barbecuing out front, a pregnant woman. And then
not to death, but yeah.
Right. And then you have the Garner case. So, I mean, I'm not trying to play Al Sharpton up, but I am saying to you, without Al Sharpton, Bill de Blasio would not be in Gracie Mansion right now.
Look, I think we have to get out of this business of thinking that because you meet with an activist or community leader and treat them with respect, that necessarily means you agree with everything that they have proposed.
I agree with you, Mayor, except my only point
them.
is this. Meeting's one thing. Let the cameras get you going behind the door. I'm only used to seeing that meeting, then they come out, they shake their hands, they walk. Then sitting down at a table and put microphones in everybody, going shoulder to shoulder, you're clearly elevating that person to not only just being the voice of that community, which he was anyway before the meeting ever took place, I don't debate that, but he's telling you what he wants to see. And when you get into that position and you don't know what he's going to say when he's in front of it, I just think now that basically you have to satisfy what Al Sharpton wants, and he may not be able to deliver on that.
If you are a competent elected official, as I think Mayor de Blasio is, you can hear people out, you can give them a spotlight, and in the end make a judgment about the right way in which you want to move. And as Dominic correctly pointed out, mayors don't have the luxury of determining for other people who their community leaders are going to be. And you have to meet with folks who have standing in significant segments of your city. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the meeting. In the end, a judgment will be made by de Blasio and the police department and others about the right way to proceed, and everyone will be able to form a judgment about whether that was the correct thing to do or not.
I don't think de Blasio is so worried about Sharpton. I think he's worried about the black communities of New York, and he's worried that he wants to make sure that they feel like he's hearing their grievances, that he's sensitive to what they're angry about and is taking action towards that end. If it's manifested in Sharpton, yeah, that might be some political difficulties for him, but this wasn't focused on de Blasio and Al Sharpton. This was focused on de Blasio and black New Yorkers.
He's just got to only be careful one thing. If it's the perception is that the standard is he either delivers a conviction here or he's failed, he's come up short, then that's a little dangerous. But that's my only point, because we don't know how the court system's going to play on this case. We don't even know if he's going to be indicted. We think he's going to be.
But we don't know. But how do you?
We don't even have the ME report.
But let's put Sharpton to the side for a second.
I got to go break too. So last word on that.
So what do you think the black community is going to say when they've already seen this outrageous video? People have already made up their own minds.
Absolutely. All right, when we come back here, this one caught me at least off guard. U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, he's not letting up. He is doing more digging and making it more public, going to Governor Cuomo's former anti-corruption commissioner. I know this really upsets Bill a lot. We're going to be talking about that straight ahead.